Hello everybody. With the release of the Heatblare F4 Phantom, I figured I would make a video explaining the keybinds that I personally use for my Warthog Hotas. After looking through YouTube for videos explaining keybinds for the F4 Phantom, specifically for the Warthog Hotas, I personally haven't been able to find very much, if anything at all, that explains what keybinds people are using for the Phantom, so I figured I would make a video and explain it myself, and show you which keybinds I personally believe are the best to use for the Phantom. So as far as the Hotas goes, this is going to be specifically for the Thrustmaster Warthog Hotas, although there are some Hotases like the X56 by Logitech or Cytec, I believe it was. They have similar button layouts to the Thrustmaster Warthog, so going through this you should be able to get them somewhat close to what I have, just because they have fairly similar button layouts. Alright, so once you have DCS loaded, come up here to the little cogwheel, click on that. Once you're here, you're going to go to Controls. Make sure under Controls you have your F4E selected, not the F4E Wizzo seat, as those key bindings will be separate from the F4E pilot seat. I would recommend searching for the buttons I'm going to tell you, if you go under All But Access Controls, there is a ton of buttons for the F4 Phantom. We're going to be focusing firstly on the throttle quadrant, and then we'll get to the flight stick in a second. Alright, so starting from the very front of your throttle quadrant, you should have a little silver switch. Just above it should say engine L, meaning engine left. These should be pre-keybinded for DCS when you plug in the Warthog Hotas. You shouldn't need to change these, but just in case something happened, engine L should be bound to left engine master switch on, and this is going to be with the button forward. With the button facing rearward, it's going to be left engine master switch off, and then it will be the same thing for the right engine, the switch right next to it. Even though it says flow R, you're going to press it up, and this should be right engine master switch on. Pulling it back should be right engine master switch off. Alright, so just to the rear of those keys that were just keybinded, you should have little silver switches on your Hotas called engine operation, a left and a right switch. These should also be keybinded directly to DCS without you having to do anything, but just in case something got messed up, the left switch is going to be bound to left engine ignition, and the right switch should be bound to right engine ignition. Alright, so just to the rear of those two keys that we just bound is your APU start on your throttle quadrant. I have this bound to my landing gear toggle. Make sure it's the toggle and not the out and in. So flip it up, and there you go. So just to the right and rear of the APU key, which we just rebound to the landing gear, you should have a little joysticks looking thing that I have reset to my zoom. So you're going to want to come into your axis commands for this, press the zoom forward and to the rear under slider. Go forward and backwards, and that should set it to joy slider 1 for your zoom. Now, just to the rear of that, you should have a little gray button on your Hotas. It's labeled as your landing gear warning and silence button, but I have rebound it to my eject button. So make sure it's the eject 3 times button, not the eject instant button, because if you accidentally press this button, you don't want to immediately eject and have to cold start all over again. Been there, done that. Not fun. So eject 3 times, click the button, and you're good. Alright, so just to the rear of that, you should have your autopilot laced. It's the little silver toggle. It should say path, altitude and heading, and altitude. So this I have bound to my helmet visor. If you don't know this already, there is a modeled helmet to your pilot in the F4 Phantom. You can toggle the visor down, or you can toggle sunglasses down. So for mine, I have it set to the forward position under path. I have that set to helmet visor. Now for that same key, for the sunglasses, if you want to toggle those on, I have it set to the rear, which is altitude. And OK. Alright, so just to the left of that should be the little black button that says engage and disengage. This one should already be bound to the Phantom. You shouldn't have to program this one, but this is set to the AFCS autopilot toggle. Alright, just to the left of that should be your radar altimeter switch. I do not have that bound to anything. But to the left of that, your EAC arm and off, I have set to my master arm. So you double click on that, push the button forward, and OK. So the far left of your throttle quadrant, you should have a flaps indicator. It should say up, MR, and down. So over here, you're going to rebind this to flaps, slat switch, norm, out, three-way down. And that is going to be pulling or pushing the button forward. And then for out and down is going to be pulling it all the way back. Alright, so moving on to the throttle itself now. The far left, you should have a little silver pinky switch. I do not have that bound to anything. Don't worry about that for now. That can be rebound to whatever you want in the future. But what I do have bound is the little red pinky button in the top left corner, and that is my canopy handle. I set that to toggle. This doesn't absolutely need to be rebound to anything, as it does have a button in game, left control and C, where you can close it, but I like to have it bound to my pinky button just so I don't have to take my hands off the throttle quadrant when I'm taxiing, lining up on the runway, things like that. Alright, so on the right from that, you should have a little joystick controller on your throttle. This, I have the click key, so if you click the button in, I have this set to antenna hand control trigger half action button. So you just click in the joystick, and there you go. Alright, so we are now in the axis commands for the F4E. We're going to be rebinding that same button that we just found. Not the click, but the rotation of it. This is going to be the Wizzo antenna hand control slew X and the Wizzo antenna hand control slew Y. X is going to be your left and right, and Y is going to be your up and down. I also, if you come in here to tune combo axis, I do not have any dead zone or anything like that because I don't really experience much drift with my antenna hand control. And also I don't have any curve on it because I want it to be nice and snappy when I'm trying to select a target to lock. Alright, so inside of the F4 Phantom there's something called the weapon slew. If you look down to your left while you're looking in the Phantom, you'll see a little joystick with a orange base. This lets you control Mavericks and other slewable weapons that you can control on the radar screen from the front cockpit. You do need to have this bound, so I currently have it bound to the little hat switch right next to the joystick controller that we just bound. So you're going to go down, left, right, and up accordingly. So pushing the hat down, pushing the hat left, pushing the hat right, and pulling the hat up. Alright, so the next switch is going to be on the right side of the throttle. It's going to be another little black hat. This one I use for SRS chat. So for your UHF, which is going to be your main comms, SRS/VoIP only, UHF hold, I have this bound to pushing the button forward on the hat. Now if you want to bind the intercom mode, it's going to be on the same hat, just pulling it backwards. Intercom mode is more for SRS if you're wanting to talk to a Wizzo that you happen to have in your backseat. If you don't want to talk to them through Discord, you want to talk to them through SRS, you're going to use the intercom hot mic. So pulling that hat backwards is going to be your intercom hot mic. Alright, so just down from that you should have a little switch. It's texturized. There's a three-way position on it. You can push it forward and hold it to the rear. I have this set to my speed brake in and out. So if I want to have it out, you're going to have it on the speed brake out and hold. You're going to hold the button to the rear to deploy your speed brakes. So click on the button, press it backwards, and you're done. For the next button, it's going to be speed brake in. which is just going to be pushing the button all the way forward until it clicks, and you're done. All right, so for the next two, you have a thumb switch. It's called the China hat. It's a red thumb switch on the throttle quadrant, right-hand side of the throttle quadrant. So I have this bound to my drag shoot deploy and my drag shoot in. So the first one is going to be forward on the China hat, and the drag shoot in is going to be backwards on the China hat. Alright, so for the next button we're going to be programming, it's going to be the gun/missile pinky switch, and it is gun/heat 3-way down. On your throttle quadrant, right above your China hat, which we just programmed, you have something called the boat switch. It's got a little divot in it. You can push it forward, middle, and backwards. So for the gun/heat 3-way down, you're going to be pulling it backwards towards yourself. And then for radar/heat 3-way up, double click on it and then push it all the way forwards. So now we're going to be focusing on the flight stick. It's going to be starting in the top right hand corner of the flight stick. Make sure you are in the joystick Hotas Warthog category now. We're going to be starting with the trim hat. So that's going to be starting with the left press of the trim hat and working our way down. Now it's trim nose down, which is pushing the hat forward. Trimming the nose up, which is pulling the trim back. And trimming the nose right, which is pushing right. So just to the left of that, you should have your red bomb button. This is pretty simple. You look up bomb button, click on that, and press the red button. So just down from that, you should have a little hat switch. This is going to be used for your DSCG screen mode, down, next, and up, set accordingly. So down here where it says up, I'm going to push that little button up. This one's going to be to the right, and this one is going to be down. Just to the right of that, you should have another little hat, 8-way rocker this time. I have this set to my gesture context, UI, back, and IFF. So for my gesture context action, you're going to set this to downwards on that hat. For the gesture UI, it's going to be up. And gesture UI back is going to be left. And for gesture IFF, it's going to be gesture command radar IFF, and this is going to be a right press of that hat. So the next button is going to be our chaff and flare dispensers. So this is the little gray button, a little thumb button. Pressing the button forward is going to be dispense countermeasures, and pressing the button rearward is going to be dispense flares. Also with this button, you're going to want to reprogram the click to the air-to-air release button. That's just going to be clicking the button in. So the very front right of your Hotas, you should have a little gray button. This I have set to the cage button. Click that, and okay. So the next button we're going to be programming is the pinky switch button, not the lever, the pinky switch, little gray button at the base of the stick. This one's going to be your nose gear steering auto acquisition button. Alright guys, the last button you'll have to program is going to be your trigger. I know you have a 2-stage trigger, but you're only going to need the first stage for this, as that's all the pilot seat takes. So once you have that bound, you should be good to go, and you should be up in the air in no time. Alright guys, so that is it for the little tutorial that I got on the keybinds. Hopefully this helped you guys out. I appreciate you watching the video, and take care. See you up in the skies. Peace.